Hey there, and welcome. Today, we're going to unpack one of the biggest, most important economic stories of our lifetime, the incredible rise of China.
I mean, it's a massive question, right? Think about it. How does a nation go from being a largely poor agricultural society to an absolute global powerhouse in industry and technology? And do it so unbelievably fast? Well, that's exactly what we're going to break down.
So to really get to the bottom of this, we're going to follow a kind of recipe. First, we'll look at the miracle itself, the sheer scale of it all. Then, we'll break down the key ingredients, those pillars of growth. After that, we'll dissect its really unique model, this blend of state and market. Of course, we have to look at the cost of that success. And finally, we'll take a peek at what might be next on the menu for the economy.
All right, first things first, we really need to wrap our heads around the sheer speed and scale of what happened here. You know, it's often called an economic miracle, and honestly, that's not far off. I mean, the change is just, wow, it's staggering. We're talking about a fundamental shift over just a few decades. What used to be an economy defined mostly by rural life is now this global hub for manufacturing, tech, and commerce that pretty much influences every market on the planet. So that's the what. But how? How do they actually pull this off? Let's dive into the core drivers behind this transformation, what we're calling the main ingredients in China's recipe for growth.
Okay, so the absolute bedrock of all of this was a really simple but incredibly powerful idea. China positioned itself to become the world's factory. It took its huge labor force and low production costs and just became the go-to place for making, well, pretty much everything, from the sneakers on your feet to the phone in your hand.
And what's so smart here is how these pillars build on each other. So you start with mass industrialization, becoming that world's factory. Then, and this was huge, China joins the World Trade Organization, throwing its doors wide open to global markets to sell all that stuff. But to ship it all, you need infrastructure, so they poured unbelievable amounts of money into building modern ports, high-speed rail, highways, you name it. And now we're seeing the next phase, a major pivot to strategic tech investment, aiming to lead in areas like AI and electric vehicles.
But you know, it wasn't just about sending stuff overseas. Two other really big things were happening at the same time. Domestically, as people started earning more, this huge consumer market emerged. People wanted to buy the very things the factories were making. And, at the same time, China was looking outward, expanding its influence with big projects like the Belt and Road Initiative, creating new pathways for its goods and money.
And that brings us to maybe the most fascinating part of this whole story, the secret sauce, if you will. China's economic model is, well, it's pretty unique. There's not much else like it.
And this table just lays it out so clearly. On one hand, you have this incredibly powerful state planning. The government has a heavy hand, directing money into key areas and pushing through gigantic projects at a speed that's hard to imagine. But on the other hand, you have a surprisingly dynamic, market-driven economy that's amazing at attracting foreign investment and competing globally. It's this weird, powerful hybrid of state control and market energy that really defines the whole thing.
Okay, but a model this powerful doesn't come without a price, and it certainly has its critics. To get the full picture, we have to talk about the trade-offs.
So you really see this two-sided coin here, right? Being able to mobilize resources and build massive projects at lightning speed, that's a huge advantage. But the flip side, as critics point out, is that when political goals drive decisions, you can end up wasting resources or propping up companies that aren't actually competitive on their own. And then, beyond the economic debate, the sources we're looking at also point to some pretty significant political and social costs. This whole system operates under a single-party government, and that comes with major restrictions on things like individual freedoms and freedom of the press, plus a whole lot of state surveillance and control. It's the other side of the trade-off, and it's a huge part of the story.
All right, so that's the story of how China got here. Now for the big question, what's next? After all that incredible growth, what are the new challenges on the horizon?
Well, the path ahead isn't exactly a smooth one. There are some major hurdles. For one, the population is aging fast, and that puts pressure on the workforce. Debt has been piling up, and of course, there are ongoing trade tensions with other major economies. But maybe the biggest challenge is making that difficult shift from being the world's factory to becoming an economy driven by new ideas, by innovation, and by services.
And you know, this one quote from our source material really just nails the whole thing. China's success sparks this huge global debate about how much the state should be involved in the economy, and it forces us to confront that central question about the cost of trading individual freedoms for rapid growth. Which leads us with this final, massive question.
The unique hybrid model that created this economic miracle, is it flexible enough to adapt and solve this whole new set of problems? The answer to that is going to shape not just China's future, but the future of the entire global economy. Thanks for tuning in.